Jesus 911.
Welcome to Jesus 911 Soul Patrol. My name is Jesse Romero, retired Los Angeles cop. This is where we talk about Catholic spiritual warfare Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. 3 retired Los Angeles cops. We get together and talk about the natural and the supernatural, the preternatural. Today we have a special guest, a friend of mine named Adam Blai. Adam is a very interesting fellow. Why do I say that? Well, he's worked in the Department of Corrections before as a psychological services specialist. I worked in the county jail also as well for several years in L.A., so we kind of know the same ambience. I worked in the mentally ill offenders unit. And Adam is he's a peritus, which is basically a Latin word for an expert on religious demonology and exorcism for the Diocese of Pittsburgh. And he also trains priests in healing, deliverance, and exorcism on a national level. And he's also, I think, the only layperson that's an auxiliary member of the International Association of Exorcists. Adam, welcome to Jesus 911, brother.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, Jesse.
Adam, let's get right to it. There's just time goes by quick, so right now that I have a peritus, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Really, 2 things I want to broach with you today. I want to talk a little bit about the Brownsville Road case, but before that, I want to ask you about the long-form St. Michael the Archangel prayer. It's called the Exorcism of Leo the 13th, St. Michael the Archangel prayer. I know Archbishop Vigano just asked priests to say that prayer a few weeks ago. My question to you is that, and I know Cardinal Ratzinger had something to say about the usage of that prayer. So the question is that prayer relegated only to priests, or can it be prayed, say, by a serious Catholic privately for his personal devotion or prayer time? So what's the scoop on that, Adam?
Well, it depends on whether you're referring to the St. Michael prayer that was promulgated for the laity that John Paul II asked that be said after every Mass, and that happened for quite a few years, or whether you're talking about the minor exorcism that Pope Leo XIII wrote, which is sometimes referred to as kind of the fuller St. Michael prayer, or often just the Leonine exorcism. So you're probably referring to the Leonine exorcism. So, and I'm flipping open the rubric for it right now because I have the exorcism right here. Okay. So just to be real clear, the St. Michael prayer, the basic prayer that most people know, is fine, and everybody can say that at any time. That's the one for the laity that we learn and is often said at the end of Mass.
Got it.
What that comes from is the minor exorcism that Leo wrote. And what are the rules of that exorcism? So, can't find my glasses. All right, so let me read you the rules, which are still in place. The following exorcism can be used by bishops as well as by priests who have this authorization from their ordinary. Now, that's the rule in red in the exorcism rite.
Got it.
That has been in place and has never been removed. And in fact, there was a dubia, which is an official answer from Rome, from the Vatican, to a question. There can be a dubia on anything. Basically means an answer. It's an official answer. And I have a copy at my office. I don't have it here, where they responded and said that rubric, the one I just read to you, which says it's only a bishop or a priest with authorization, has never been, the word is abrogated. And that just means removed or suppressed, or a new rule took its place. So that's still in force. Now, the question of using it privately is interesting. You want to be careful about how people interpret that. So if I say, well, I'm going to go down to this place where I think this business is doing evil, or there's a moral problem there, and I'm going to say it, and because it's just me saying it, it's private. Basically, you want to be really careful with that. It would be one thing to say it at home when maybe I want to pray for the world. I want to pray about a particular issue. It's another thing to go down and do this in public. So I would say err on the side of don't use it at all. And here's why. Officially, you're not supposed to use it as a public action, meaning in public or, canonically that can mean a public action of the church, which is in an official setting like a mass or a funeral or something like that. You want to be really careful because there's a spiritual dimension in addition to the legal dimension. So we can say, well, there's the legalism of it. There's a rule there that the church put that said it's only a bishop or a priest, and then only with authorization. But on the spiritual side of things, we want to be careful about, and excuse me, my throat's gummed up from coffee. We want to be careful about overstepping our bounds.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
And
what do I mean by that?
Let me Adam, let me stay. Would it be like, I'm just going to give you an analogy, like an earthly analogy. It would be like giving a soldier just right out of boot camp, and you're giving him charge of, let's say, a tank, or you're giving him charge of a 50 caliber machine gun, and the guy just graduated from boot camp an hour ago. In other words, you're giving him a higher caliber weapon than he's actually ready or trained to use. Would that be a fair analogy? He's been given a higher caliber weapon.
Yeah, that's close, Jesse. I would say the other part of the analogy that would be helpful is you'd be sending that person into a hostile environment where combatants are going to fight back. And with minimal training, as you know from being a cop, let's say somebody had minimal training and you want to send them into one of the worst areas on a call that sounds very serious, discharge of weapons and things like that. You would probably say, let's make sure somebody experienced is going because there's going to be pushback. All right. So spiritually, it's the same thing here. What makes it a little bit questionable and a little dangerous for laity is, number one, it's against the rules. And we know that God is all about being obedient, right? So you see many instances where obedience is super important to God. You see that in the Bible. You see how it plays out in the rules and religious orders, just all over the place. So you don't want to be disobedient.
Yeah, obedience and authority are big in Scripture.
Yeah, and the other thing is, within that prayer, there's imprecatory language. There's a direct command. And whenever you get into direct commands with demons, you have to be careful because the full authority was given to the 12 apostles by Jesus over the demonic. Okay? Some people argue that the 72 also had a full authority because they say we went out and we prayed against demons, etc., etc. But from priests that have studied this rigorously, the understanding is the full authority is with the bishops, who are the living apostles.
They're the ones. They're the ones they have the full power of exorcism in their diocese, correct? They just share it with a designated priest, but they're the ones that have the full power of exorcism, apostolic power, correct?
Exactly. So when a person who doesn't have that apostolic power lent to them by the bishop, when the bishop tells the priest, I give you permission to go do this, he's lending his power to the priest, his authority behind that action. So how does that play out? I've been at hundreds and hundreds of solemn exorcisms over the years. I'm not bragging. It's just I'm saying this is not just a theory in my mind. When people have made a mistake and directly addressed a demon, either asked a question or given an order, like, hey, be quiet, sit down, anything, and they don't have apostolic authority, the demons are very happy when that happens. They will immediately turn and say, who are you? Something along those lines, basically like, who are you to tell me what to do? And they won't obey, which is the proof in the pudding. When the priest, with permission from the bishop to do the exorcism, says, sit down and be quiet, they sit down and close their mouth. That's the proof in the pudding. When a person who doesn't have apostolic authority tries to boss a demon around, the demon basically says, I'm not going to listen to you. Who do you think you are? Because they don't have the apostolic authority lent to them. And we see this play out. Now, we're careful at exorcisms, and this rarely happens. Maybe somebody new is there, or a priest is helping us and praying along with us that isn't the exorcist, and maybe they make a mistake. Not a huge deal, but it highlights the fact that we have to be mindful of authority when we're dealing with these prayers, particularly when we give a demon a direct order. And that's included in this, in the St. Michael exorcism, in the Leonine exorcism, in the full kind of prayer that the St. Michael prayer is extracted from. So these are all reasons why not only is it against the rules, but it's not wise.